Hello and welcome. This is our fourth session on Karma Chamé's text about the union of Mahamudra and Mahasandhi in the practice of Chinrezig. Whichever way round you put it, Chinrezig can be practiced as the union of those two, or the point where those two are completely inseparable. More than overlap, where they're inseparable, is in the practice of Chinrezig. But anyway, this is our fourth session, and because it's about Chinrezig and the very pinnacle of all of our Mahayana Bodhisattva practice, then we start with a very precious moment, very necessary moment of reminding ourselves of bodhicitta, our loving commitment to all beings, and our promise to attain enlightenment, to help them all, which is quite a big promise. So we spend a few moments savoring that, considering it, reminding ourselves of it before we start with the blah, blah, blah and our continued exploration. We take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the community of most noble minds. From this moment on, until we reach the very heart of enlightenment, through our practice of generosity and all six transcendent virtues, may we reach total awakening and every enlightened quality to be able to truly help sentient beings so lost in samsara. May each and every one of those beings be well. May they live long and be healthy, be well provided for, have good friends, find respect. May they live in places of peace and plenty, and most of all, may they practice Dharma. May they each create the causes for these good circumstances to be their wealth in future lives. May they be free from suffering and from creating causes of future suffering. May they discover the natural and sacred well-being totally beyond suffering and attain the great equanimity that's free of closeness or distance from anyone. Deyata shame shamavati shameta shatru Om kurimam kurimara jite karote keyori tejovati oloyani pishuda Nimale malapanaye kukure kaka grase Grasana omuki paramuki amuki Shamedavani savagraha bandhanane nigredva Savabhava pravadina vimukta marapasha Savedva buddha mudra annutkatita Savamare putsarita parishute piga shantu Savamara Kama. Glorious Guru, source of all blessing, ever present above our head, seated on lotus, a moon seat, through your immense kindness, ever sustain us, that the accomplishments of body, speech, and mind flow from you, and we are one. So, as you know, this is our fourth session, and we are studying Karma Chamé's work, and that he was a highly accomplished, enlightened master of both Mahamudra and Dzogchen, the Kagyu and Nyingma traditions, he was a yogi who spent a lot of his life in retreat, and one of the greatest teachers of all the Dharma history of Tibet. Very famous, very, very, very venerated. And we're seeing how he says that all of these wonderful lineages of practice and Tantra that are in Mahamudra and in Dzogchen, Mahasandhi, all of them are totally present and best practiced through the Chinrezig practice, if it's done in the right way, and that what we've been seeing so far, we can get so easily distracted in all other things, and those, distracted in the sense of investing ourselves. We can invest ourselves. Invest ourselves means use our time, our energy, our resources in all sorts of Dharma things, Buddhist things, monastic activity, Buddha center activity, study, Lama support, and all sorts of stuff. But then we can do that and miss the essential. So we're in this text, the first chapter of 8 chapters. There are 8 chapters, they're all important, but this first chapter is the most dense, in a way, it's the most intense, and it is very, very important because it tells us the reason why. And then many of the other chapters are about, once we understand what we're about, why we're about it, then how do we go about it? And so this short chapter is important, and we've taken our time, I've taken my time with it, because it touches on such deep topics. So if we pick up from where we left off, then I think last time we looked at the verses about the generation stage or visualization stage or creation stage, whatever we call that one, and the completion stage. So I stopped numbering the verses on my piece of paper, verse 5, verse 6, verse 7. So we've done 7 verses, I think. Correct me if I'm mistaken. So then now, today, we go on, if I can separate my pages. My text doesn't want to leave the completion stage. There we go. So now we come to 4 verses, and at the end of the last session, I explained how these 4 make a set: view, meditation, practice, and result. And I think I explained last time that this is a need to know. If you're in Vajrayana, you're in Tantric practice, Tibetan Buddhism, you need to know about view, practice, action, activity, and result, whatever names we give them. And I think I said last time, but I'll say it again this time because it's very important. It's our way of analyzing what goes on in a faith, in a system, what they believe in, their view, what they do on a spiritual level, on a personal level, so that you, in your mind, live true to the view, live up to it. It's personal. The third thing, the activity, is how you act in the world, what your conduct is because of your view of things. And then if you have that view and that meditation and that action, then what's the best possible result that can come out of it? It makes a lot of sense. Let's turn it inside out. Why do people pray in churches? Why do Buddhists sit on cushions and meditate? Why do Hindus do the various types of Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, and so on? What's the point? It's because they believe something. They have a view of why I'm alive, what life's about, what's going on in the universe. Everything comes back to view, which is very important, but because of our view of who we are and why we're alive, then that's why we explore our mind as Christians, as Buddhists, as Hindus, as Jews, as atheists, but with a strong understanding of science and the way the universe works, or as psychologists and psychiatrists and so on, as therapists, we have a view. And then because of that, for instance, if you're a Freudian psychiatrist, then you need to go through your own therapy. You need to sort your own mind out in the Freudian way before you can start helping other people understand themselves through the Freudian method and so on. So this is a very universal template, and it makes a lot of sense. And then within Dharma, we apply that to the 9 main forms of Buddhism that are around, to see what are the Theravadas, what's their view, what do they think the Buddha was talking about, and then because of that, how do they meditate, and then because of that, how do they act in the world, whether it's renunciation or their compassion, their kindness, what's their ideal action, and then take all of that into account, their view, their meditation, and their practice. Through that, what's the maximum they can achieve? And in their own terms, and seen from the outside, it is to become an arhat. So we have 9 different types of Buddhism. It's not about schools and geography and history. It ends up being like that, but it's more than that. It's all because the view is a bit different. We're looking more generally at what's going on inside Buddhism. And so then we find traditions, anyway, it gets complicated. What we're looking at here is the heart of the matter, not so much history and geography and which school developed here or there. So there are 9 different ways of Buddhism, and it's very helpful to be clear about that, because we have access to all of them these days. So much stuff online, so many books have been written, so many things available now in our own countries. And if we mix them up, it's a bit weird. It's like cooking. You've got Indian cooking, Chinese cooking, English cooking, French cooking, and so coherent recipes, how to cook a Mediterranean dish. You've got your olive oil, your tomatoes, your garlic, and so on. Or with the Chinese one, you've got if it's Sichuan cuisine, you've got these little star spices that blow your head off. When you come across them, then you're kind of, do I need to call a doctor or not, until the effect wears off, and so on. But if you mix them up in one dish, then that could be very, very strange. Like you could start with a Glasgow cuisine, a deep-fried Mars bar, right? And then you could wrap that up in coleslaw salad, and then put some Indian curry sauce on the top of all of that, and then put it inside a pita bread, and then and so on and so on, and then put the whole thing in a bowl of borscht soup, and okay, you've got a very interesting dish maybe, but I wouldn't eat it, thank you very much. But this is what we do with Dharma. People read this in a Zen text, they read this in a Dzogchen text, they like Theravada, they like walk for peace, mindful walking, and then and so on and so on. So it makes for a strange Buddhist practice, and the important thing, does it make for a fruitful Buddhist practice? It makes for confusion. So people who in Dharma, and I think this is a consensus across all those 9 traditions, the ones who really use this life and change for the better and really evolve as a Dharma person, follow one tradition well, and because it's coherent and it has an integrity, then the practices fit with the views and the philosophy, and then how you act in public fits in with that. So then it's sensible. It's like riding horses. You can only ride one horse at a time, unless you're a circus performer, and then maximum 2. And it's really true. And it may be that all the horses can go in the end, but you have to pick at one point. It's like when you land in the airport in India, and there are 1,000 taxis who want to take you where you're going. You have to pick one in the end and get into it, and then you get where you're going. So this is very, very, very important. And behind everything that's in a tradition, at the heart of it is the view. How they understand what Buddha was teaching. We call it the Buddha's intention. So in these next verses, we're looking at view, and then because of the view, meditation, action, and result. So the next verse says there are many ways of teaching the view, the Buddhist view, such as cutting through projections from outside or from within. But just as smoke automatically ceases once the fire in the hearth is extinguished, so it is far wiser to sever the root cause of one's own mental activity within. So the Tibetan is 2, 3, 4. Tropechi nature dong, nang nature, tawitan look, magic, magna yang, tapji mese do, chapji mese duwa rangaktara, nangdu rangsem sawa chopa zap. It's famous zap, far wiser. It's the most important thing, to sever the root cause. Now, here we need to understand, first of all, the key point, which is view. It's called the view. So let's take a visual view as an example. And to tell you, there are 2 meanings of this term view in Dharma teachings. There's the real thing, the real view, and there is the view as description, as belief. Like not just the view from where I'm sitting now, but If I were in the next room, then I have a view over my garden, I have a view over the neighbours' gardens, quite a lot of trees, and then in the distance there's the sea, the Mediterranean, and there's a little island, and then there's the end of some very high cliffs and so on. Now, if I sit there, that's real. It's how it is. It's what I'm seeing right now. Doesn't need words or anything. So, but just now I told you about it. Okay, so when I was telling you about it, my garden, the neighbour's garden, the trees, the sea, the island, you were listening, you were understanding, you were making your own mental picture of Ken's view, all right? That was all ideas. That was all thoughts. And, your thoughts then conjured up from your own memory when I said island. All the islands you've seen or seen in pictures and so on. The sea, trees, and so I don't know if the trees you imagine were the trees that are actually there, or the island that you imagined was like the island that's there. So in all the blah, blah, blah of Dharma, philosophy, then there is the view as ideas, as words that evoke images and realities in our mind. And we can study those through the words of Buddha and the words of the great masters of the 9 main ways of Dharma, the way they've understood the words of Buddha. So we read about it and then we say, yes, the view of the Karmapas in the Karma lineage is this, Shentong. And then, but the view of the Dalai Lamas, Rantong perhaps, and you can spend your whole life studying that and arguing about it, and you'll be very, very lucky if you ever really understand it, because you're trying to understand the reality that the Karmapa was expressing. The Karmapa was actually living that and explaining it, a Milarepa. So when Milarepa talks about the view, he's not talking about blah, blah, blah philosophy. He's talking about how it actually is for me at this moment. That's really what we're talking about here. And all of the blah, blah, blah is to help us sort out our own head, our own interpretation, our own understanding of what's going on here. What's going on in my lineage. It's very helpful, all the philosophy. But again, we don't want to make it a lifetime detour. And you'll never get to the level when, if there's a debate between the Karmapa and Tsongkhapa, or another Lama, and we're trying to understand, why do they disagree? What do they disagree about? Then we've only got their words, and with time, other Lamas' interpretations of their words, that when we read and we make our own mental fantasy of what those words means, it's abstract thought. But it's helpful, we need to go through it. But it's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about the reality. So I just described my reality. Imagine a vivid reality. Let's go to the Pyrenees. Let's go somewhere to the Western Pyrenees, and you're maybe 2,500 meters up a mountain. You can see France that way. You can see Spain that way. You can see the Atlantic that way. And an amazingly broad view that you just spent 4 hours climbing up a mountain to experience. So, and other people like me, I was thinking the other day of the beautiful places I've gone to, and I'm just not well enough, and I won't ever be well enough to go back to them. Some amazing places, some even not that far away from here. I can jump in a car and I can go where the trek starts in 2 hours. But there's no way I'm going up those hills anymore. You know, it's just beyond me. And it's quite a shock when you realize I'm never going there again. My favorite place, you know, when visitors came here, and I want to take them up there, and they'd all be absolutely gobsmacked. The amazing places, like the Verdon Canyon. You can go up the sides, and there are prehistoric caves. There are untouched prairies full of wildflowers and running streams, and in the spring you see thousands of butterflies. It's just nowhere like that. So I'm never going there again, and I had to sort of impermanence, old age, all the rest of it. So I can tell you about it. I can show you photos of it. But it's not the same as when you are actually up there, because the air is very, very pure. And, you know, the sounds and everything it's live, it's real. And so I can tell you how to get there. I can describe what it's like. But all of that is abstract thought. All of it. So here with you, I think I've made the point, we're looking at the reality of understanding what? Your mind. What is the view? The view means that you are crystal clear about your mind, because your experience is true and immediate in this moment, moment after moment after moment. Your mind has lost its confusion, its delusion. That is what we're talking about. So, like my wonderful place up the Pyrenees, or like my place in the Verdon Canyon, or anywhere, we have to get there. You can't just read about it and understand it. When you read about it, or I tell you about it, you understand something in abstract thought. But that understanding isn't the experience of being there. So with the view, if we follow the Mahamudra path, if we follow the Dzogchen path, then we have methods for getting there. In the last session, we looked at those. The methods involve a generation stage, a creation stage, visualizing, a completion stage, doing exercises with your inner energies and so on. This is the way we go. That's the way we go through practice. And so this is what Karma Chamé tells us. There are many ways of teaching the view. How do we get this clear mind that understands mind perfectly? He says there are many ways of teaching. He says the view, but he actually means teaching the way to get the view, such as cutting through projections from outside or from within. So the word here is projections. This is a translation, right? In Tibetan, we have the term tropa, and different translators have tried. They've got their own, how can you say, pet English term to explain tropa. One of the earliest ones I came across, I think, was Karma Chan, who did Milarepa's stories, and he calls it play words. And some people say thoughts. And so we're looking here at freedom from that. So some interpreters, you can't say they cheat, but freedom from whatever trapa is. So they translate what that comes to, simplicity. But the term itself doesn't mean simplicity. It means no trapa. No trapa. So this verse is about cutting through trapa. And you've seen this term in various, I'm sure, Tibetan practices. Cutting through, cutting off, slicing through. Chut practice, or Trek Chut in the Dzogchen teachings, slicing through. And so slicing through these trapa. So what is trapa? I can't really find one word at all, or even a couple that describe it in English. It will make sense to meditators, because you'll find, and it gets deeper and deeper, but your mind is in the right place, and then you lose it, right? You lose it because you think of something, or you lose it because of your stomach, fancy a sandwich. All of a sudden, you've been meditating on Buddha and light, and all of a sudden, cheese and tomato sandwich kind of comes up, and you've lost your Buddha, or you're doing counting with the breath, totally with the breath, and in that kind of one-pointed being with, in shamatha, then you lose it. That's what trapa is, losing it. You lose it. And why do you lose it? Because of your habit. The habits of your mind that we call samsara. All of them. So it's not just thoughts. You don't just lose it through thoughts. A little bird comes and sings at the window. Sound or sight, you get distracted. And all sorts of things, everything that we call mind, mental activity. So when we look into that, as we did a year or two ago with the Abhidharma teachings, you've got the 5 aggregates. You've got form, feeling, cognitive processes, samskaras, and consciousness. All of the subdivisions of those, that's mental activity. So in a way, that is a translation, mental activity. Not thoughts. Thoughts are just one part of the 5 aggregates. Mental activity, feelings, and form, and the senses, and so on. So the mind is active. When we follow the Mahamudra path, or the Dzogchen path, and we meditate, you sit on your cushion and you do various practices, we see the mind can be still, or the mind can be active. When the mind's still, there's no problem. The still mind, a wonderful thing. No problem. Really isn't. It's not causing problems, no causes. It's not the result of problems, life with all of its busyness. So as either cause or result, the still mind is good news. And in Mahamudra and in Dzogchen practice, Chinrezig practice, then that still mind is where wonderful things can happen. It's the beginning. It's the portal to the discoveries of the Buddha's intention, what Buddha wanted us to find, the truth of mind, the truth of being. It starts in stillness. As soon as your mind is not still, and it's busy because of habit, that's what we call samsara. And trouble. It's trouble. Water is often the analogy. Still water, troubled water. Really works nicely in English, trouble. When why is water not still? Trouble. It's troubled. The wind of karma moves it. So, in the different 9 jhanas, to get to their result of discovering what they consider to be the truth of mind, then there are various methods that involve attaining stillness and then working within that stillness. The first jhanas, they work very much, as it says, cutting through the trouble from the outside. You cut off your attachment through dissociating yourself. I think I said this very recently in a talk. For instance, you're a monk, you're a nun, you walk with your eyes just looking at the road, so you don't make eye contact with other people, you don't make emotions, feelings, reaction, desire or aversion, and so on. The ground is very kind, it doesn't look at you lovingly or angrily. So if you keep your eyes on the ground and you keep doing your practice, mindfulness and so on, then you can cut off your habitual, your historical trouble. It's a long journey because we get triggered by so many hundreds of different things in different ways. So the idea there is you kind of retreat into yourself. You cut yourself, literally cut yourself off from the world. So the monastic life and contemplative life is a withdrawal. That's an outer way, the most outer of the outer ways. And then there's the Mahayana way, the Bodhisattva way of you don't cut off so much, but you cut through your desire as it happens. So there you can, excuse me, I think it's a delivery. Okay, so there are, in the Mahayana way of cutting through, then we allow the desire, through donut, okay? You allow it to happen, but then you transform it into beautiful Mahayana Bodhisattva thoughts and thinking about everybody else and so on and so on. But we're still cutting through the old habits. And then as we go through different ways of meditating, then we can cut through much more from the inside, where we're deep inside our mind and observing it, doing tropa, getting involved. This in our Mahamudra training, the word involvement is very, very important. It gets involved with the past. What just happened, thoughts of the past, but mainly the immediate past. It gets involved with fantasizing the future, and especially the next moment, the next instant. So we cut through that, we learn to stop doing it. And then it's involved with the present, the now, the famous now, one way or another. And we stop letting it get involved with the now, and so on. So you probably realize I'm talking about the 6 instructions of Tilopa. You let go of the past, you let go of the future, you let go of the present, you stop analyzing, you stop artificially meditating, and you just let that moment be as it is. So 5 no's, you don't do this. Don't get involved with the past, don't get involved with the future, don't get involved with the present. Stop analyzing, stop meditating, being a meditator where there's a you and an it, and you've got a role and all of that. Stop 5 things so that, number 6, you can let this moment be. Just whatever it is, you can let it be. So this is quite an inner way. So he says there are many ways of teaching the way to attain the view, such as cutting through projections from outside or from deep within by stopping the trapa where we lose it in the past, present, future, and so on. But, so even though there are all those ways, but just as smoke automatically ceases once the fire in the hearth is extinguished, so it is far wiser to sever the root cause of one's own mental activity within. So mental activity is the habitual mind from the past. So we are here getting to the heart of the matter. You know, a fire, why is a fire an example? A fire is made through causes and conditions. You gather wood, you gather kindling, you set a spark, and all of that, then that makes the glowing fire. The fire makes smoke. And you can be studying the smoke for a long time and trying to take away the branches of wood bit by bit. We can work on the historical mind, detail by detail, area by area, our own psychology, our own habitual desires, aversions, confusions, and so on. You can do that, but a bucket of water. No more fire, no more smoke, all gone. So how do we do that? How do we take away the fire and all of its consequences? It's by recognizing the innate purity of mind. Now, what that is, and what is at the heart of the view for Mahamudra and for Dzogchen, are the Buddha nature teachings. What is the truth of mind? And as you know, those of you who did this, we spent a year of Saturdays going through this 400 and so many verses from Maitreya about mind as refuges, Buddha Dharma Sangha chapter, as our potential, Buddha nature chapter, and then when we realize it, enlightenment chapter, enlightenment's qualities and its activity. So the view is absolutely that, if we want it in anything that can be expressed in words, for us to think about as ideas and understand it. That view is expressed in Maitreya's teachings, and they are the source of the view for all the Tibetan traditions, as well as for Zen traditions and so on. Maitreya's text is it, in terms of words and abstract thought. But the real view comes through Mahamudra or Dzogchen meditation, which takes us to the point where the master helps us to recognize the truth of our own mind. That happens. It's the reality. Changes everything. And once that reality, that experience is there, then we have the view. The real view. Like the person up the mountain, like the person in my next room looking out over the sea. We have the real understanding. We see, if we use the word view, we see it as it really is. We see mind has always been pure. and that our own history just confines us to a tiny space, moment after moment. Our endless, pure Buddha mind, endless love, wonderful love and compassion, peace. So many qualities, 64 qualities and so on. All of that becomes gone in what? A thought, an idea, a memory, a fantasy for the future, an experience. And so I'd like to share a few quotes. I mean, we're coming back to abstract thoughts and words and ideas. It's true. But they may or may not help. We're talking about the truth of mind, the truth of your mind, the truth of you and mind. So there's one sutra called the Sutra of 33 Questions. All the three worlds, the three levels of reality, with form, without form, and sensorial, all the three worlds have arisen from the mind. But that very mind from which they've arisen is not something demonstrable as this. Without form and ethically neutral, it's like an apparition. The wise seek the reality itself of the mind. When they seek the reality itself of the mind, the mind and reality itself of the mind are not to be seen. With whatever mind the mind is sought, the intrinsic nature of mind is never seen. In a tantra called the Tantra of the Full Enlightenment of Vairocana, it says, even the Tathagatas have not seen, do not see, and will not see the mind. It has no color, has no shape, it's not male, it's not female, it's not neuter. Another text called a Commentary on the Spirit of Awakening says, the Buddhas do not find the mind inside or outside or between the two. And in that same commentary, it says, the mind is just a label, so look upon it as a mere label. Moreover, the label has no intrinsic nature, so the mind is of the nature of an apparition. Saraha says, ah, my child, look, observe your own mind. The mind is not verified by observation. How amazing that this unestablished mind itself appears in so many ways. Your own unborn mind is the Dharmakaya, and the Dharmakaya is without birth or destruction. How amazing that this embodiment of what is unborn and that is great bliss is present within you. In the Dharmakaya mirror of your own mind, non-dual primordial wisdom arises as luminosity. From the moment it arises, it is unestablished and is inborn great bliss. So there are endless quotes like that in our lineage, in the tantras, and so on, and hard to understand until you meditate. And then if you meditate, because this is what this verse is talking about, there are many ways showing us how to reach the real view, not a description of the view, not a belief. You actually experience it. There are many ways. But But the best way is to put out the fire of your historical mental activity by just being the pure mind. So how do we do that? Chenrezig practice. Chenrezig is Dharmakaya, manifest as Sambhogakaya with the form, the arms, all the ornaments and so on, and the legs, and then performing activity as Nirmanakaya in the 6 realms through the radiation of the lights. We experience the reality of our mind through the practice of Chenrezig. Every time we do Chenrezig practice, we're tuning into who and what we really are, the truth of mind. So then, to explain a little more, to use words, to use ideas, a little more about this reality of direct experience we need to attain. It means that we need to look and look and look again. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times to discover what is this mind. To find what's doing all of this. Like in front of you, you've got a phone or a computer, right? I imagine if you're on the Zoom, you must be on a phone or a computer. You know what it can do, but you can turn it off so it's not doing your household accounts, or it's not doing you Zoom, or it's not doing you whatever you do with your computer or your phone. And you can see what's doing it. There it is, switched off, and you've got all the electronics and the circuits and the battery and all of that. That's it. That's what does what a phone can do. You can get down to the doer rather than the doing. You can see what's doing it all. Or like very often used as an example, actors. And we can say, oh, I saw him, he did an incredible Macbeth, or then he did an incredible Oblomov. You've seen this actor, but you've never met the actual actor. You've seen the doing, but you've not met the doer. So we look for, what is this mind that is making me so bloody miserable just now? Oh, what is this mind which makes me so peaceful and, or so devoted as a Buddhist, or, whatever's happening right now, this moment. What is doing this? What is doing the forms, making this present moment reality? What is doing the feelings, how I feel about it? What is doing the cognition, how I'm understanding the story of what's going on just now, and the samskaras, and then which consciousnesses are involved. Okay, that's the doing. That's what we can observe that. That's how can you say, nuts and bolts, dharma, through shamatha. You get to see what your mind does. Quite a discovery. But then, what is doing all of that? What is the mind? What is mind itself that can be enlightened, that can be paranoid, that can be anything? It does all those things. Okay, we've seen that, we know that, the teachings tell us about 6 realms, but what is doing it? And we look and we look. We really try and find it. It has to be the most sincere, the most savage search. What is doing all this, right? As is happening every moment on your cushion in life and so on. We look again and again, hundreds of thousands of times. And we get some help from the techniques we learn in Mahamudra and Dzogchen. And we try and find what is called mind itself, chittata, or dharmata, the mind itself. And as a something, this is the point, as a something that does all the other things, nobody ever found it, nobody ever will find it to say, gotcha, mind, this is the mind that does all those things. Not even the Buddha, and not even the Buddha, no one will ever find a something that does the moment. And I could leave you with that for the next year to think about it and work on it. It's a huge statement. And I didn't see it just now, and I don't want to hunt through a book to find it. But one of the teachers says, no one can say we've not got a mind. That would be ridiculous. If I told you you don't have a mind, of course. All the time, if we've got this, feels like a mind, my mind's happy, my mind's sad, my mind's fantasizing, my mind, whatever it is. No one can say you've not got a mind. It's obvious to everyone. There is a mind, there is mind, but then nobody ever found such a thing. So we need to go through that search ourselves. At the same time, it becomes not just the search for mind itself, but the search for yourself. Because in ordinary terms we say, I'm happy, I'm thinking, I'm remembering. Who? I had a very dear friend who was a teacher in the Gurdjieff movement, and then he became a teacher in Buddhism. And he had a very powerful way of suddenly saying, who's doing this? It was like when people were doing their practice, he was leading a session, say, hi, who's doing this? So this search for mind is also a search for ourselves, who we really are. And we need to really do it. Who the hell am I? What the hell is this mind that's doing all of this? So nobody ever found something which is fixed, and we can say that's mind, and that's what it does. That's the meaning of this. Mind is unestablished, unborn. If it was born, it would be a something. It would have arisen, been born as mind that does it all, like your computer does what it does, like your phone does what it does. But nobody ever found it. So what did they find? And what did the Buddha and Saraha and all of these masters who tell us these things, what did they find? They found what is beautifully expressed in the short prayer to Vajradhara. It can manifest as anything whatsoever, but in itself is nothing whatsoever. It can manifest as anything whatsoever, but in itself is nothing whatsoever. So when it manifests as anything whatsoever, what is that? That's now. That's what is called this ordinary mind. Ken Holmes' lecture just now, right? A screen with an image. These sounds, blah, 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 blah. Sounds inside you. These ideas are there through interdependence. And there's nothing you can grasp even for a second. It's gone. It's gone. So when we start exploring in the reality of the moment, we find it's like that. Whatever that last moment just now, the last second was, it's gone. You can't grab it. It's gone forever. In this present moment, you're trying to be in the present, experience it, but it's already become the past. And the future, none of it happened yet. I mean, it's just an idea, the future. What does it mean? literally, how do you define the future? What didn't happen yet? That's what it is. So there's nothing there. So when we try and grasp it, nothing lasts. Everything changes through interdependence. But it's there. What's there in the moment? So this is called a simultaneity. Some Buddhists use this terrible term co-emergent, which is I don't like. Right? But there is the interdependence of the present moment caused by past causes and conditions, and then it's gone. And the very fact that there's nothing there to grasp, and it's gone before you can even experience it, that's its voidness. Form is void. And voidness is not some empty space. It's the very fact that form comes and goes before you can even catch it. Split second after split second. Because this verse is about how do we get that clear view. When we're doing the practices, cutting off from the outside, cutting off from the inside, the best way, going straight to Buddha nature, when we do that, then when you actually do that in practice, we realize why the Buddha says it's like a dream, it's like an illusion, it's like clouds. Because you can't say they're not there, but with fast-moving clouds like you have in a storm. What's there? It's changing shape all the time. You can't say there are no clouds there, but what is there? Well, you can say clouds. It's easy, but what is actually there? It's changing all the time. Through the wind, humidity causes conditions of all sorts. So the interdependence, something happening, manifestation. So then manifestation becomes important. And the fact that it manifests and at one and the same time, it's come and gone, there's nothing you can see, it's voidness. The simultaneity of manifestation and the voidness, the fact that there's nothing there that you can say, that's it. So the Mahamudra prayer describes this in more detail, and if you like, you can go back to our sessions on that to understand the verses about it. So anyway, that was a few things said about this verse, about there are many ways of teaching how to attain the view. Cutting it through from outside, cutting it through from within. But the best of all is once that whole fire of your history is put out, because you go to the truth of your mind. In meditation, this mind of now, which manifests voidly. And it's doing that all the time, and all the time. And it will carry on doing that forever. It's amazing. So that's about the view. The next verse is about, if that's the way we understand it, that's the way we understand it, the theory of the view, the Buddha nature teachings, and then through our shamatha, vipassana, Mahamudra training, if that's the way we're actually experiencing it more and more, and through the pointing out of our teacher, then in our next step, meditation, in our own intimacy between you and your moment by moment experience that we call meditation. How do we meditate? Now, this word meditation, the next verse, just as we explored the idea of view, well, it's a funny word, isn't it? Meditate. What does it mean? Like if I say to you, meditate, as a meditator, what's he doing? Meditation. It makes sense. But what does it actually mean? What do you do when you meditate? What are you doing? And if somebody not a clue about Buddhism comes up, or a child and says, what do you do when you meditate? You can tell them your technique. Oh, I sit down across my legs, I count my breath, and so on. But then somebody else is meditating while they're walking, and they're aware of their feet, and so on and so on. So what does to meditate mean? So the word in Tibetan is gom, gom. And the whole root of the various terms around gom, they all mean to become habituated. And this is the real meaning of meditation. Meditation practice is we learn new habits, a new way to use our senses, our thoughts, our feelings. It's so we are the closest you could get to translating Gom into English, a practical translation, would be rehabituation. It doesn't sound terrific, it's not an attractive word, but it means we're reprogramming ourselves. All of our historical habits and reaction patterns and interpretations and projections and everything, we are reprogramming, reorganizing. That's what the word Gom itself means. So now on this level, where we're combining Mahamudra, understanding, practice, or Dzogchen, with Chinrezig practice, what is the key point of our practice? What is internally, in our own intimacy, how we are using our own mind? So what is the meditation, the Gom? So there are many ways of meditating with or without characteristics. But the wisest is to practice the unity of lucidity and voidness as the development stage, perfect through recollection. Senche tsemme gonluk mangnayang, salton zunjuk cherim drenzok zap. Very short verse, that one. So, well, many ways of meditating. I don't want to bore you. The 9 jhanas, they've all got their own in-house meditation methods. And then in particular, in Mahamudra, we've got the sort of 50 or so steps of instruction and practice in Mahamudra, Ocean of Certainty, that some of you are doing with Taisitupa, and in Dzogchen there are the stages of Tripja, Turgam, and so on. There are many ways, and then the Theravada ways, Mahayana ways, and so on. 9 jhanas. There are many ways, but the best is to practice the unity of lucidity and voidness. Lucidity, this text I've given you was a translation I made, over 10 years ago. Clarity, we could say clarity. It means the present moment is vividly clear. it's not, what's the opposite of clear? It's not made unclear. It's not made fuzzy. It's not made a cause of suffering by our samsaric mind. It just is what it is, whatever it is in the moment, whatever it is in this moment. So whatever it is very clearly, very cleanly experienced, very directly experienced. At the same time, there is the wisdom that knows its interdependence, knows its impermanence, knows all about it at the same time. So that is shunyata, voidness. Shunyata means interdependence, the wisdom of interdependence. Not wise words in your head about interdependence and blah, blah, blah. This is where this comes from. It is much more direct. It's a familiarity that needs no more words. It's like, I'm sure this is a good example. I was going to say it's like a child, your own child you've known since birth. You don't need to explain. You just witness the whole growth of the being into the person they are in this moment. They are familiar. Maybe a garden is a better example because human beings are a bit too complicated. So it's a garden you've known, like my garden here, for 40, 50 years. And you've just observed the things that have grown, disappeared, been blown down by the wind, planted themselves, you planted. And there's no need to go around saying, I planted this in 1965 or whatever. It's familiar. It's totally familiar where it came from. And through experience, it doesn't like the cold wind. You have to, if it's in a pot, you have to hide it from the wind or the ice in the winter and so on. You just do those things because you know it so well. No need for blah, blah, blah. There is the wisdom of total clarity and familiarity about this, this plant. Is a very tender plant. We know we take it in at this month of the year, we put it back out that time of the year. If it's a palm tree, you wrap it up in blankets at the end of January. You know it for what it is, and you deal with it for what it is through wisdom. Through wisdom. And that wisdom is, when you look at it, totally related to interdependence. Why do you wrap it up at the end of January? Because that's when the cold and the winds come that can kill it. And maybe you already lost one palm tree because you didn't wrap it up in blankets. And that was the most painful thing because it had been growing for 50 years. I'm talking about a tree here, as you can imagine. And that was beautiful. 50 years went into beautiful growth. And then something killed it. And there's no way you can put it back together again. So the next one, you're very careful, wrapping it up and doing what you need to do. Wisdom. Loving, kind, caring wisdom. And that understands all the causes and conditions at play in the manifestation of the moment. So the unity, that's the word here, is unity, of lucidity and voidness, means there's no such thing as voidness. other than the interdependence of this very moment, whatever it is. Voidness is interdependence, and interdependence means impermanence. It's part and parcel of interdependence is impermanence. Nothing stays the same, even for a moment. So there is that wisdom which is very, very poignant. It's very powerful. You know, at each moment you live will never happen again. Each word you exchange with somebody else, a dialogue, a presence of somebody, a taste of the food you eat, will never happen again. Each moment has a huge past behind it, all of your history, somebody else's history. It happens and it's gone and never to come back. Once you get it live, life changes so much, because the history, your mental history, your habits from the past have blinded you. We take people for granted. We take health for granted. We take so much for granted. We live inside our fixed projections which are wrong. The actual reality of each moment, it's like the flow of a river. It's totally impermanent. This is poignant. If you're attached to samsara, it hurts. It hurts. If you're seeking liberation, it still hurts, but it's the road to freedom. That you can live each moment without getting involved with it, without putting it into a prison. So now we're talking about meditation, you in your intimacy as each moment manifests. It's so vividly clear. That's it. That's all there is in this moment. There's no Buddhas somewhere else. There is this moment. And yeah, I don't know what else I can say. I'm just sketching something. I can't describe this in a way which will be, how can you say, stand up in a court of law and say, this is what we mean by meditation. I'm trying to sketch something. There are many ways you can improve your mind within yourself, for yourself, that nobody else will ever know. We call that meditation. Ways you can reprogram your mind. But the best way, and the way that corresponds to applying Mahamudra and Dzogchen to Chinrezig practice, is the living unity of lucidity, the vividness, and the fact that there is no tangible reality, the voidness, impermanence. So then we come back to this idea of the development stage. And so then we need to go to the Chinrezig instructions. All sound is the mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum. Everything your senses experience is Dewa Chen, pure land, Chinrezig. You are Chinrezig in a pure land. Everybody else is Tara, Chinrezig, Bodhisattvas. All mental activity is dharma. and dharma as wisdom, rikpa, intelligence. So it's the wisdom that knows what's really happening and how to relate to it. That development stage, applied through, development stage means visualizing, saying mantras and all of that. That development stage becomes in itself completion stage as you realize the union of manifestation and voidness. So hard with words, but if you practice, the more you practice, the more these verses make sense. And really, honestly, I suppose, Karma Chamé's text is a text for people who practice and who have some experience of Mahamudra practice and Dzogchen practice and who are doing Chinrezig. So he's saying in your development stage, then whatever sounds you're hearing are manifestations of Om Mani Padme Hum. That sounds crazy at first. I mean, if you're just listening to the ideas, an elephant going, is an elephant going, it's not Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum is what Buddhists do. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. And the elephant does, and the cat goes, like this. So you say, no. A meow is a meow. A bark is a bark. And Om Mani Padme Hum is Om Mani Padme Hum. You need to do Chinrezig practice. Tune into Chinrezig through the method. And once Chinrezig is starting to run through your meditation veins, then this starts to make sense. The elephant, the meow of the cat, the bark of the dog, or the blah, blah, blah of your Auntie Jane, whatever it is, and the way you're experiencing it is about the compassion of your mind interfacing with the experience of your mind as expressed through Om Mani Padme Hum. Then it starts to really make sense. It's like when scientists say, a concrete path is atoms, and it looks so solid and so concrete, and then they tell you it's atoms, and actually it's just 99.9999% space. It's both, isn't it? It's both. It is atoms, space, energies, but at the same time, if you bang your head on it, it's going to really hurt. Even though it's 99.999% space, somehow it can cut your head open if you fall over. Both things are true. So when we do the Chinrezig practice, we tune into Chinrezig as our Dharmakaya, the truth, deepest truth of mind, its manifestation as Chinrezig form, Om Mani Padme Hum sound. Once we tune into that, then this thing of all sound is the mantra, all form is Amitabha, Chinrezig, and so on. It starts to work. So it's saying for the best practice, there's many ways you can practice, all good, all dharma, but the best is if you can practice Chinrezig with this Mahamudra understanding of the simultaneity of manifestation and voidness. Mind is nothing whatsoever, yet can manifest as anything whatsoever. I think we have to stop there for today because time has gone by and our many moments of impermanence together are coming to an end. So let's do the dedication that we do, the money dedication. I prostrate to the Dharmakaya, the union of all the Buddhas of the three times, the one who gazes upon the six kinds of beings, Chinrezig, 11-faced, all-pervading like space. most impressive and majestic Amitabha. Om Mani Padme Huri. Om Mani Padme Huri. Om Mani Padme Huri. Through the quintessence of all the Dharma in 6 syllables, may a cloud of offerings appear. May they be presented to the peerless guide Chenrezig, and to Sakyamuni, king of the sages, the crowning glory of all the Sakyas, and to an ocean of Buddhas and their offspring, bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, and to all the Kagyu Lamas. Om Mani Padme Huri. May the fulfillment of the wishes of the former Buddhas and the completion of the accumulation of future Buddhas and the long life prayers of the present Buddhas all be made manifest through the 6 syllables, Om Mani Padme Huri. All those who have a karmic link with us, our fathers, our mothers, our teachers, relatives and friends, all those who place their hopes in us and rely on us, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing, that they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Huri. All those who've been my benefactors and asked me not to forget them, all the kind benefactors I promised not to forget, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Huri. All the dead for whom lamas have been asked to say prayers, all those who passed away from this life, and those whose possessions I received, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Huri. All the beings who live off the goods intended to make representations of body, speech and mind of all the Buddhas, and those who live from the belongings of lamas or the Sangha, or from ransom obtained through selling sacred images, or from goods offered out of faith, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Huri. The dead I've heard about or seen with my own eyes, and all those in the 3 dimensions of conditioned existence who pass away, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Huri. All those who've been murdered, who died from starvation, who perished on high mountain passes, or were drowned, or those who wander in the bardo, accompanied by so much sin and little virtue, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Huri. The most kind mother cow whose milk and yogurt I consume, all the animals whose flesh and blood I may have eaten, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Huri. All the pack animals overburdened with loads they can hardly bear, beasts who are beaten while ridden, those that wouldn't budge and had their noses pierced for pulling with a rope, plough animals, Protector Chenrezig, lead them all on the way. Grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Huri. Those who've committed the 10 unvirtuous actions and the 5 immeasurable sins of no reprieve, or the 5 sins almost as great, all those with such bad karma, Protector Chenrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Those in the hells, craving spirits, animals, jealous semi-gods, gods, and men, all sentient beings in the 3 dimensions of conditioned existence. Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing, and they be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum Ri. All those who live in the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and wind, whether in bodily form or formless, small or large, Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum Ri. Rulers, monsters, and citizens steeped in corruption, bad humans who are shameless, deceitful, and hypocritical, those with ill will in their hearts, Protector Chinrezig, lead them onto the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum Ri. Infinite as all the cosmic systems of the 10 directions, all beings as difficult to reckon as the unfathomed deeps, Protector Chinrezig, lead them all on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum Ri. Beings who live in each province of this world, or anywhere on similar planets under their suns, Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way. Grant them your blessing, that they may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum Ri. 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 Thank you very much. Your turn now. And hello to those I didn't say hello to at the beginning of the session.
Anne, would you be able to just briefly say something about the purpose of the creation and completion stage in and clarify if that is an ultimate guru practice?
Yeah. I think the explanation I'd like to give was more fully developed in the last 2 sessions. About there was one verse about serving the guru, and that the way the guru is best way to serve the guru in Karma Chamé's advice is to practice Chinrezig, see all the gurus as Chinrezig, and then in the actual practice, then we had a verse about creation stage and completion stage, and in this text, we're looking at those as creation stage, completion stage of Chinrezig. So the creation stage is using our mind's resources to visualize and go through all sorts of operations like making offerings and so on, and our speech to make the mantra. We are identifying with the purity of our mind in order to purify our history. So we let the purity of our mind as Chinrezig be born from a lotus, from a seed syllable, and so on, to purify all our karma for being born from the seed of our parents and so on. And each part of the practice is purifying the impure karma that we carry with us as baggage. The completion stage, perfection stage, is reminding us that while all of that's going on a relative level, everything has always been primordially pure. So we're working with the relative personal truth of ourself, which is individual, and that individual stream only ends at Buddhahood. So we're working on that with the creation stage practice, and we're working on recognizing our true nature through the completion stage practice, because as we saw today, that's putting out the fire radically, not bit by bit. It's going into the Buddha we are. And it says in many of the Prajna Paramita texts, for one moment is the same as hundreds of years of other Dharma practices for purifying. So there are those two stages of practice. When you get to recognition of the nature of mind, which in itself is called completion stage, then we practice the union of creation stage and completion stage, where we never leave the truth of our mind while still projecting Chinrezig in order to purify our relative history. So now we know who we really are. We're experiencing it, the Buddha within. But at the same time, all that baggage is still there. And so while never losing the vision of our ultimate truth, we're working on a relative level through Chinrezig practice to deal with our history. Does that help, Vicky? Good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Wow. Yes, Anna.
Hi, Ken. Would you please be able to say a little bit more about the practice you mentioned earlier, where the being in the present moment with everything that arises in the present moment is the practice?
Yes. If we go back to the verse, and it's about the view and the meditation of the best way to do it. And both of those verses say there are many ways of being in the present moment, right? So there isn't just one being in the present, right? We can be in the present. I mean, in some ways, people who've never done any meditation or mindfulness or Buddhist practice, they are totally in the moment, in the present moment, right? They are living it 100%. It's quite interesting to think about that. They are for sure being in the present. So as Buddhists, we get some distance of awareness, of like our own, whatever it is, CCTV camera. We are not totally carried away by the present. There is being in the present. But there are many, not ways of doing it, there are many levels to how that can happen. And and then the word mindfulness is very relevant here, because the original Sanskrit Tibetan means recollection, which is the word we had today in the text. And recollection means not forgetting. So it means we are in the present moment, not forgetting the Buddha's teaching about interdependence, about impermanence, and so on one level. We're in the present moment, not forgetting, if we're in Vajrayana, our own guru's instructions about how to be in the present moment. Although it is very vivid, because we are not dulling it, confusing it, messing it in some way. It is what it is, exactly, but at the same time, our intelligence, our Buddha mind, our whatever we have of that, our mindfulness, is giving us the most enlightened attitude towards it and relationship with it that we could possibly have in this moment because of our Dharma journey. We're relating to it. So, for instance, behind all the different stages of Mahamudra practice, shamatha, vipassana practices, and so on, behind all of them is a basic instruction, understood, which are the 6 points of Tilopa. Even when you get, in Mahamudra Ocean of Certainty, there are 52, 53 steps of meditation, practice, and instruction. You go through one by one. So in the shamatha, you get an object, like a piece of wood or a stick or a stone is one step. But even when you're doing that, before all those instructions in the Mahamudra, it says, for all these relative helpful practices, you are not getting involved with the past, the previous moment. You're not getting involved with the future, anticipating what's going to happen in the next second. You're not involved in being in the present. You might be in the present, kind of that kind of thing. You're not involved analytically, telling yourself some story about it, explaining the present moment to yourself. We have to learn to stop doing that. And we're not engineering in any way, trying to make the present moment go this way, that way, in terms of meditation practice. We're just actually letting that moment be. So we have 5 knots, and they're really powerful. It's like it's like your guru's there saying, stop it, stop it, stop it, because something happened and then we've stuck to it, the previous moment, whatever experience it was. We can't let it go and just let the next moment happen. We're clinging to the past. It's got Velcro, it's got you. So stop it. And then the meditation, and you're starting to get paranoid or something. I don't want to get paranoid, I want to be peaceful. So you're kind of engineering what's happening. You want to make, so you're hoping or fearing about the future. Oh, this is going good, it is quieting down. This is getting like this, and you want to sort of make it keep going, keep going. So you're starting to try and engineer yourself. So stop it. And then you're sort of telling yourself about the present, about you and all of that being in the present, some kind of, because always what's going on is 2 sides. There's a you being in the present. That's delusion. So we stop it. And you're analyzing. You've got all that Buddhist information. You are loaded. You've been super injected over 20, 30 years with explanations. So you are telling yourself what's going on. Sometimes very quietly. It's very subtly in the back of your head. Stop it. And then, you're engineering. So we have to learn again and again. Each moment you find you're doing it. And stop doing that. Sorry, it's completely unrelated, but this is a chat, so it's not a formal teaching. When I was studying Tibetan medicine, one of the Tibetan doctors had this habit that some people have of tapping their foot with their whole lower leg and their knees, like going tap, 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 tap on the floor. And it was so annoying for me. It was my training in not being annoyed. I was sitting there and we're looking into all the details. Do you know what I mean? When somebody's like that. And so I never said anything. But I really wanted to say, stop it. You don't need to do that, and it's distracting, and you're kind of like a bag of nerves. You're a human being, explaining these things, and you're vibrating. So we do that with our minds, moment after moment. We find it does it, but it works if you work at it. You work at it and work at it. So there we are, being in the moment, letting it be as best we can. But mindfully means we're not forgetting Tiloka's instructions, our Guru's instructions, that knows how we should be in this moment. So that kind of a training, usually we need to get used to it on the cushion. You're quiet, you're protected, you're in your shrine room and everything. But once we get used to that on the cushion, then we apply it to life. So we're out there, we're in conversations, we're shopping or whatever. And that same letting go of those 5 tendencies is happening. And we're letting the present moment be. It's practice. You have to learn how to do it, and how to do it intelligently. People on drugs, people on LSD, sometimes they would let the present moment be, but if you do that, it can be totally overwhelming. You can be in a car and you hear the wheels on the road like 1,000 times louder than they are. And it's so real. Each piece of gravel that is going over, you can be telepathic in a room and feel people's emotions and thoughts, and it's like it's too much. So normally we protect ourselves. We've evolved as, I suppose, as human beings and as individuals, we've evolved to be able to survive life on a shutdown level. So we need to experience in real time on the meditation cushion and so on what it's like to be in the serenity of the truth of our mind, while letting life be exactly as it is. It's an apprenticeship through experience. Words are very, very poor. I don't know if that helps at all, Anna.
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Yes, thank you so much, Ken.
Yeah. I think maybe this is the end of today's talk. And so next week is our monthly Tonglen. So for these teachings on Karma Chamé's text, we meet again in a fortnight's time. So I'll see you then. Yes, I'll see you then. In that fortnight, I'll be getting news. I'll be getting a scan and some news from the doctor. I might not be around for a while because I might need to go for an operation in, I don't know, May, June, something like that. So I'll let you know next time we see. Take good care.
Best wishes, Ken.
Thank you. All the best.
Okay, Ken. Lots of love now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.